After getting flattened by a truck, Ryo reincarnates into a magical world. He plans to chill out and live a peaceful life. The universe disagrees. A teen wakes up inside a cabin deep in a forest. He steps out of his room, sees a knife and 2 books on the table and no breakfast, not even a scrambled egg with ketchup. He goes outside to check out the scenery. It's serene and beautiful. He lifts his hand and surprise he summons a water orb. It immediately pops like a soap bubble. Before landing here, he had a surreal moment in what he thought was heaven. But nope, some baby-faced angel shows up to clarify this isn't heaven, just a cosmic waiting room. The angel tells him his name is Ryo Mihara, and yeah, he got hit by a truck. Ryo asks if the guy is God. The angel's like, not even close, so Ryo names him Mikey. Mikey explains reincarnation rules. No mission, no quest, he can do whatever he wants, go feral, knit sweaters, become a waterbender, totally up to him. Ryo chooses peace and solitude. Mikey gets it. After becoming roadkill, the last thing you want is to end up in downtown chaos. So Mikey sends him to a chill magical world called Phi, where 1 in 5 people can use magic. Ryo will have water powers. Mikey drops him off in a forest cabin, gives him a 2-month food supply and somehow installs a giant fridge. Man's got range. There's also a monster-proof barrier around the cabin. Vibes secured. Ryo flips through the books and finds a monster encyclopedia written in a weird language. He doesn't know it, but for plot reasons he can read it anyway. With the setup complete, he finally experiments with his powers. Making water balls is easy. He learns he doesn't need to speak to cast magic, just imagine. But he still says it out loud, because it sounds cooler. Then he tries to take a bath. The problem? Cold water only. He tries making fire the old school way. Rubbing sticks together. Doesn't work. Exhausted and still stinky, he has an idea. He figures out how to create ice by visualizing water molecules and freezing them. Then he shapes the ice into a magnifying lens to focus sunlight and start a fire. Finally, a warm bath. Progress! While soaking, he remembers he's only got 2 months of food. After that, he'll need to venture outside and all he has is a knife. Not ideal. He starts practicing attack magic, water balls first. Great if your enemy is a matchstick. He tries to launch one with force. All he gets is a wimpy splash. Then he remembers Mikey's advice. Magic is all about visualization. He trains until his splash turns into a blast. Next, he learns to heat water, handy for baths. Then he tries creating ice knives. Making the ice is easy. Throwing it with power, needs work. Throwing by hand is fine but won't cut it in combat. He trains until he's basically dead tired. To make things worse, he forgot to light the fireplace. No sunlight left, no heat, big set. He keeps practicing until he can form ice quickly but still can't launch it well. Even so, he feels ready to explore the forests. Near a river he finds quartz, perfect for sparking fire. Now he just needs some good herbs and he'll call it a win. But life says, not so fast. A giant boar shows up and it's not friendly. The beast charges. Ryo barely dodges in time. It charges again. Ryo freezes the ground and summons ice spikes as a shield. Momentum does the rest. The boar crashes. Nature's physics wins again. Now Ryo returns home with more than just quartz. He's got boar meat, a fresh hide perfect for a winter cloak, a set of horns to spice up his cabin decor, and a few bones to add flavor to his next soup. Gourmet life unlocked. Turns out the boar was a lesser boar, a bottom tier monster. Basically the tutorial boss, and he almost got clapped. Ryo consults his monster encyclopedia and flips to the special mention section. First up, dragons. The book says they can destroy entire cities by accident. So if he ever sees one, the move is simple. Run for his reincarnated life, or else he'll get isekai'd again. The catch? Escaping a dragon is pretty much a miracle. So if he locks eyes with one, he might as well play his own funeral music. Second mention, the Devilin. No joke, that's what the book calls it. They're angels gone rogue, origin unknown, and the best you can do is pray you never meet one. Real comforting stuff. Anyway, next day he changes into something more fitting of a forest warrior. His old clothes? Trash. Now he rocks a premium boar loincloth, fashion and function. He heads out to pick berries when suddenly ambushed from above. A massive hawk dives at him, slicing the air with invisible blades. Trees get chopped like salad. Ryo checks the book. Yep, it's a killer hawk using a spell called Air Slash. Ryo knows this fight is out of his league. No more hiding. It's brawl time. He hurls water balls at it like pew pew pew. But the hawk dodges with anime precision. Za 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 and za za za. The hawk goes full dive bomb. Ryo summons an ice wall just in time. Bird crashes. He doesn't finish it off, but the hawk flies away with a swollen eye. Lesson learned? Don't mess with the kid in a loincloth. Catching his breath, Ryo stares at the sky and thinks, Yo Mikey, you said I get a chill life. Could have at least spawned a 7-Eleven nearby. Since he ran around to escape the bird, he's now lost. Wanders the forest until he stumbles on a glowing lake. In the center stands a headless rider and his ghostly horse. Time has passed. Ryo's leveled up hard. He can shoot ice shards, fish like a pro, and has brawled with all kinds of monsters. He's upgraded Water Blast and now slices through rocks like a boss. Turns out the secret is crafting dense ice granules and launching them at speed. He's changed so much, even his skin tone deepened. The forest does things to a man. That night, Ryo returns to the lake wielding an ice sword. He calls the headless rider Dullahan, since it's not even listed in the encyclopedia. Could be a rare entity or something entirely unknown. They clash. Rio gives it everything. Dullahan barely moves but blocks every blow. Then it smashes Rio's sword and lands a hit near his ribs. Luckily, Ryo covers up with an ice shield just in time. He collapses, defeated but satisfied. He's not strong enough yet, but hey, nightly sparring with a spooky legend sounds like solid entertainment when you're stuck in a forest. Dullahan may not talk much, but he gets his point across. He reforges Ryo's sword, extends it with ice and hands it back like, "Here kid, show me what you've got." Next day, on his casual nature stroll, Rio gets attacked by another bird, but this one's way bigger, meaner, and built like it paid for premium evolution. It's got a familiar scar on its eye. Rio squints and wonders, wait, is this the same bird? Just digivolved? Clearly the bird holds a grudge. It opens with an air spell, slicing the air like butter. Ryo throws up his ice shield, but the gust tears through his defenses like they're made of wet napkins. He runs, setting up 10 layered barriers. They barely slow the attack down. He summons ice spears, but the bird dodges like it's in a dodgeball anime. It swoops in again. Rio sets up more defenses, but with a single whistle, the hawk nullifies them. Just deletes his entire vibe. That's when Rio realizes this ain't just another monster. This is evolution in boss form. And then, boom, the hawk drops a lightning impact spell. Rio dodges by a pixel. The bird goes for a claw strike. Ryo draws his enchanted sword, the one gifted by Headless Bro, and blocks it like a pro. The blade even slices through incoming spells. Big win. The hawk's had enough. It dive bombs at full speed, talons primed for carnage. But Ryo's ready. He grips his sword and lands a clean strike to the neck. The bird crashes, bruised and beaten. Rio approaches and kneels down. He gets it. The bird's pissed about the eye incident, but he tells it straight. It wasn't personal. In fact, Ryo's grateful. That vendetta pushed him to level up. The anticipation of this rematch fueled his grind. He pulls out his sword, not about to leave that behind. With respect, Ryo comforts the bird. You're getting a one-way ticket to a fresh isekai. Mikey's got you. Then he delivers a clean blow. No suffering. And just as the feathers settle, the sky darkens. A freaking dragon descends. Remember that monster book? Yeah, this thing is city eraser tier. Normally people run, but Ryo? He stands tall. He's the protagonist. Rules don't apply. The dragon lands and greets Rio telepathically. It's been a while since it used that power. It still works like a charm. It asks if Rio saw a certain hawk, one that evolved and had a gnarly eye injury. Rio, honest to a fault, replies, "Yeah, I took it down, sorry." The dragon? Impressed. No rage, no revenge, just vibes. It congratulates Rio for the victory. It notices the sword Rio's carrying. Rio presents it with pride. The dragon recognizes it instantly. That blade belonged to the king of the fairies. Not something you hand out like candy. Clearly Rio's got serious street cred. They spend the whole day chatting like old friends. Before leaving, the dragon introduces itself, Lewin. They agree to meet again. Meanwhile, in the Celestial admin office, Mikey reviews Rio's profile and spots something weird. Hidden powers. Something he hadn't seen since Rio's original incarnation. It turns out our water-wielding hero holds the legendary cheat code, Eternal Youth. Rio heads to the ocean, craving seafood, but instead of catching fish, he finds a full-blown shipwreck. Bodies lie scattered along the shore. Only one guy still breathing. Turns out their ship got wrecked by the Kraken, and this red-haired dude's the sole survivor. He wakes up inside Rio's cabin, totally lost. Wanders around, but it's empty. He steps outside and sees Rio's upgrades, a tidy garden and fruit trees. Just when he's wondering who saved him, Rio shows up to welcome him like it's no big deal. Redhead-kun quickly realizes his savior is basically Jungle Book Mowgli in anime form. Wild child confirmed. The guy introduces himself as Abel and thanks Ryo for the rescue. Ryo shrugs it off, says he didn't really save him, just dragged him home. Also, yeah, he's the only survivor. Abel's cool with it, says the crew were smugglers anyway, no one's gonna miss them. His stomach growls. Ryo offers some grub. They sit down to eat. Abel stares at Rio's outfit, just a boar loincloth, and asks if he's got any spare clothes. Ryo says nope, no fabric, no thread, no other outfit options. Abel suggests buying some, then realizes this dude's half naked, probably broke and not even rocking underwear. Ryo explains the cabin's in the middle of nowhere. No towns, no neighbors. Shopping isn't exactly an option. Abel puts it together. Ryo lives off the land, sees his knife and asks if that's what he uses to hunt. Rio says he mostly uses it for cleaning meat. His real weapon? Water magic. Abel's jaw drops. In big cities, only half the population can use magic. He can't. Rio's confused Mikey told him only 20% could. Somebody's lying, or world building is flexible. After the meal, Abel asks to visit the wreck site. He wants to check something. On the way, he asks if Ryo needs a wand to cast spells. Ryo responds, "If there's one thing I've got, it's wand." Abel assumes he's too poor to afford one and offers to protect him if things go south. He insists he's indebted for the rescue. At the shipwreck, the bodies are gone, probably pulled away by the tide. Abel searches the wreckage but doesn't find what he's looking for. He says his next move is reuniting with his crew in Loon, a town far to the north. He asks Rio to come with him as a guide. Rio agrees but needs a moment to pack. presumably just his loincloth and good vibes. That night, Ryo tells Abel he needs to say goodbye to someone before their journey. Abel finds it weird. Didn't Ryo say no one lived around here? And even weirder, he's heading out in the dark. Ryo explains it's someone who's only around at night. He's just letting them know he'll be gone for a while. Abel wonders if he's talking about a grave. Maybe Ryo was never truly alone out here. But of course, plot twist incoming. Ryo isn't visiting a tomb. He's off to challenge the Headless Rider, who we now know is the king of the fairies. Ryo tells him he's leaving tomorrow and thanks him for all the late night battles. Those fights taught him how to survive. This is their final duel for now, and Ryo's going all out. He doesn't just want to say goodbye, he wants a win. They clash, and Ryo loses. As the rider returns to the lake, he casts a quiet little spell, no words, just fairy swag. A magical orb rises from the water and transforms into a tailored battle outfit for Ryo. Yes, tailored. No more boar loincloth. We're leveling up in style. Next morning, Ryo starts his journey rocking that fresh new outfit. Before leaving, he takes one last look at his cabin. It might be a while before he sees it again. On the road, a wild boar appears. Abel steps up and asks Ryo to sit this one out. He dashes in and performs a special thrust that fires a light beam from his sword and pierces the boar straight through. Ryo's like, oh wait, what happened to not knowing magic? Abel clarifies, this isn't magic, it's a combat technique. Non-magic folks use it all the time. Ryo being a mage wouldn't be familiar. Makes sense. Their journey continues until they spot two lizard men chilling in a pond. These dudes look dangerous, so they take the long route to avoid them. But Ryo senses more lurking nearby. They're being followed, a lot of them, and they aren't here for a tea party. Ryo tells Abel he'll take care of it with his magic. Abel's about to argue when 4 lizard men leap out. Ryo summons ice spears and impales all 4 in a single move. Abel's stunned not just by the spell but that Ryo cast 4 at once. His wind mage buddies can only do 1 at a time. Ryo shrugs. Maybe water magic and wind magic just work differently. Before moving on, Ryo whips up 2 ice cups and fills them with water. Hydration is key, folks. Drink your water. Later they hit a crossroads and have no clue which way to go, so they flip a coin. It's Ryo's first time seeing currency from this world. Abel explains it's a bronze coin from the kingdom of Knightly. Ryo loves the name Knightly. Sounds heroic, fancy. Abel adds that central provinces have their own coins too, though they all share the same names. Ryo asks if Knightly is part of those central regions. Abel says yes, it's one of the 3 major nations. The others are the Handaloo Federation and the Debuhi Empire. Ryo is not a fan of Debuhi. It sounds cursed. He jokes that calling yourself Debuhite makes it sound like you worship something demonic. They reach a quiet plain, but the rocks start to twitch. Abel slices one, but more stones begin circling them. He says they've wandered into a stone golem nest. And these aren't cartoon golems with arms and legs. These are floating rock clumps. Big dumb energy. Abel attacks. Pierces one, but it regenerates like it's nothing. Ryo steps up and gives it a shot. He summons a massive ice block and slams it down on 2 golems. Results, instant shutdown. Abel's like, chill dude, but since it worked, they go full ice bombardment. 1 golem leaves behind a shiny chunk. Embedded inside is a sizable magic stone proof it's defeated powerful foes. Ryo wants to collect it as a victory prize, and maybe loot the rest too, but removing giant icebergs. Easier said than done. Then they stumble across a gigantic hippocroc hybrid napping in the valley. Ryo suggests Abel challenge it to a duel just for laughs. Abel declines. He's not stupid. Soon a flock of flying monsters shows up and starts blasting wind spells, but the hippo roars once and poof, magic fizzles out. The monsters drop like scared pigeons. That night they camp out. Abel says he's never seen abilities like that before. Only dungeon traps pull off moves like that. Ryo perks up at the word dungeon. Turns out their destination has one. Ryo jokes about being left out of critical info. Abel didn't know Ryo cared, but tells him there are also dwarves, pretty standard fantasy fare, and elves. Well, just 1 elf. The rest stay deep in the forest. Ryo says elves don't interest him. They turn some boar hides into cloaks because it's about to get brutally cold. Ice mountains ahead. Soon they'll reach human territory. Abel's confused how Ryo knows all this. Secretly, the dragon told him mountains mark the southern edge of the continent. Ryo was living in the absolute bottom corner of the map. Of course, Ryo doesn't mention the dragon. Abel wouldn't believe him. At the foot of the mountain, they encounter a griffin. Not the kind you name your Wi-Fi after. A real one. Abel freezes, thinks fast, tosses some meat. The griffin snatches it midair and flies off, probably to eat it on its medieval patio. They press forward, but they're shook. Griffins and behemoths like that hippocroc? Top tier danger. Definitely not casual encounters. Ryo says it might not be that bad. Maybe people who fought them just didn't give it enough effort. Abel believes the mountains act as a shield, keeping the big bads away from civilization. Then Ryo realizes the flying beasts that attacked the behemoth called wyverns were coming from the north, probably from the mountain. And yep, there's their nest. Ryo wants to fight. Abel warns him it usually takes 20 adventurers to beat them. And even then, not everyone walks away whole. Ryo suggests grounding them. No flight, no problem. Abel agrees if they're stuck on the ground, he can soar them to oblivion. And so the plan begins. Rio impales wyverns with ice stakes to pin them down. Abel finishes them off with blade fury after a grueling battle and a long journey filled with monster carnage. They finally cross the mountain. Fresh off the snowy mountain, Rio feels disappointed. He didn't get to wipe out more monsters. He won't be satisfied until he's caused an extinction event. Abel says that's a bit much, but hey, at least they scored a bag full of magical stones. They keep heading north, but now they're not sure where exactly. Rio double-checks that Abel's not dragging him into that empire with the cursed name. Abel assures him it's still far off, which Rio finds deeply reassuring. Imagine your first destination in the new world being named something like Debuhi. Sounds like a food allergy. From a nearby valley, Rio spots a road heading west. Abel looks at the mountains, gets his bearings, and tells him that road leads to a small town called Keladi. Rio's excited finally. A real bed! Abel jokes that he thought Rio wanted to stick around and finish off the wyverns. Rio says no worries, he can sleep in a cozy bed and still commit monster genocide during daylight hours. Balance is key, they reach an inn. Abel explains the Isekai rulebook. Rio needs to join a guild. The guild card works like an ID, it's the only way to get into towns or kingdoms. Otherwise, Abel has to pay each time he escorts him somewhere. For this town, he had to drop a silver coin. Rio asks if that's all Abel paid because he doesn't think he's worth more. Either way, he thanks him for the entry fee. They also need to sell the magical stones and monster loot at the guild. Regular folks can't use that stuff. Only alchemists mess with it. Their food arrives, curry with rice. Rio is shook. In most isekai stories, there's an entire subplot about recreating Japanese food. But here, curry's already invented, discovered, and fully trademarked. They inhale the curry and crash for the night. Next morning, Rio accuses Abel of hiding critical info like the existence of Kori. He tells him once they reach Lune, he'd better show him all the sweets they've got. Maybe they've also invented ice cream and pizza. After walking for a bit, they finally arrive at Lune. The gate guard, Nimur, spots Abel from afar. He's thrilled, thought Abel was long gone. Abel laughs and says, "Yup, got lost, but made it back thanks to his homeless buddy Rio." Nimur greets Rio and thanks him for the rescue, then immediately charges him for entry. Gratitude in this economy? Abel takes him to the guild and says since he's tagging along, he can boost Rio's rank when registering. Normally newbies start at rank F, but if someone rank B or higher recommends you, you can jump to E or D. Higher ranks unlock tougher quests with better payouts. Not that Rio needs it, they rolled in with a backpack full of monster kidney crystals. Rio asks if they'll actually get good money for them. Abel says, yup, they're rare, but if they dump them all at once, the market might crash. They'll have to strategize. At the guild, everyone's hyped to see Abel, most assumed he was dead. Rio didn't think he was that popular, so he steps outside to avoid stealing the spotlight. While catching air, he bumps into a beautiful elf girl. Future waifu alert. She notices his outfit and smirks. Nice rags. Those are from the Fairy King, right? You must be tight with him. She says she's in a hurry and maybe they'll meet again next episode. Then disappears, leaving Rio and us with questions. Abel comes out to find him and invites Rio in. He's got someone to introduce. Abel steps into the guild and tells everyone, yeah, this short scruffy guy here, he's my friend. He saved my life, so show him some respect. He walks Rio up to the front desk where the classic waifu receptionist awaits. Abel says he wants to register Rio not like a pet, but as a member of the guild, and he's giving him a personal recommendation to jump straight to rank D. The receptionist's jaw drops. No one from the Crimson Sword has ever recommended anyone before. Abel replies, well, there's a first time for everything. And trust me, Rio deserves it. She says, okay, but he'll have to prove he's worthy of the rank. Abel agrees but wants to discuss it further with the guild master. She sends them to the waiting room. Then the door flies open. Hugh McGlass enters guildmaster and proud owner of a name that sounds like it belongs in a spy movie. He's thrilled to see Abel back. Abel introduces Rio, and Hugh says sure, he can boost his rank but only if he's earned it. Abel says Rio is stronger than him. He dumps the bag of magical stones on the table. Hugh inspects them and squints. Are these wyvern cores? Abel nods. Yup, took them down easy. Hugh looks shook. This much? That's a job for a small army. Abel says nah, just the two of them, no resistance. They cleared them south of the Malevolent Mountains. Rio chimes in, now that's a good name. Once Abel spotted the western road, he realized they had crossed the infamous Malevolent Mountains, a place so dangerous it makes adventurers reconsider their life choices. Turns out Rio and Abel walked through it like they were shopping at a fantasy farmer's market. Hugh takes that as proof enough. He agrees to boost Rio's rank. Just then the door flies open again. Enter the colorful side character squad. Two waifus, Lynn and Rena, and a giant dude named Warren. They're hyped Abel's alive. Hugh says they should all catch up. He'll take Rio to finish his registration so the reunion vibes stay wholesome. He tells Rio that this crew is the Crimson Sword Abel's guild group and the most popular squad in town. Rio shrugs. Cool, don't care. So, am I really starting at rank D? Hugh confirms. Abel's strong, sure, but even he couldn't solo a wyvern, so Rio clearly qualifies. Still, Hugh says he needs some gains, dude's looking soft. The receptionist returns with the registration kit. Her name's Nina. Hugh heads off to do the paperwork while Nina runs the questionnaire. She marks Rio as a water element mage with no current residence. No problem, guild housing is available until he finds a place. She asks if he's ever entered a dungeon. If not, there's an intro course in 2 days, packed with everything he needs to know. Rio's down. Sign me up. Nina completes Rio's registration and tells him the dungeon training will be held in that building, 3rd floor, 9 in the morning. Rio squints. And how the heck am I supposed to know what time it is? She points toward the city plaza. There's a big clock, so yeah, he'll need to hike to the plaza, check the time, and hustle back. Isekai life, not quite plug and play. She places a glowing plaque over a weird-looking device and asks Rio to place his hand on it. On the device, not on her. The contraption engraves his info with shiny ribbons and sparkles. He's officially registered. Rio reunites with Abel, and to thank him for the journey, takes him shopping for clothes and a wand. Abel's like, cool, but why a wand? Rio shrugs. I'm a mage, that's what I'm supposed to use. But then he flips the script. Nah, never needed one. If things get messy up close, I'd rather slice someone with a sword than poke their eye out with a magic stick. Abel asks, what sword? And Rio, dead serious, replies, the one I've got hanging right here. And yes, he meant an actual sword. Zero innuendo intended. But when Abel sees it, it looks more like a glorified letter opener. Doesn't know it grows with compliments. That one was innuendo. Rio says he's realizing he knows very little about this world. Time system, Kari, a clock tower. This isn't the first Earthling who's landed here. Later, Abel throws a party. Okay, it's mostly a yay Abel's alive party, but Rio gets a slice of cake and the spotlight. They celebrate into the night. Next morning, Nina escorts Rio to his guild room. It's like a hostel. He shares the space with 2 dudes, Niels and Eto. Chill vibes. Nina heads out and Niels immediately comments, man, Nina's got it going on. Eto says she's out of his league. Niels shrugs. Nothing wrong with dreaming. Eto gives Rio the classic roommate welcome speech, something like, I hope we get along, and other polite default dialogue. Then Nina comes back with another new resident. A young guy named Amon, only 17. After losing his family, he moved to Lune and became an adventurer because only this city hires rookies like him. She tells Rio that Amon will also attend the dungeon course, so just they go together. Meanwhile, Abel's recounting his journey with Rio to the Crimson Sword Crew, but Lynn's not buying it. She says it's impossible to summon ice walls and giant blocks, also impossible to snipe wyverns from a distance with ice spears. Abel insists it happened. Lynn argues the wyverns' wind barriers make magic useless, so it couldn't have happened. Abel agrees it shouldn't be possible, but it was. They mention one exception, the Infernal Mage, a guy so powerful he delivered magical beatdowns door to door. Legend says he sneezed once and erased an entire army. He kept pet wyverns like decorative parakeets. If Rio's powers are real, he could rival Infernal Mage level and be seriously dangerous if he ever joins the Debuhi Empire. Abel reassures them that won't happen. Why? Because Rio hates the name. Rio and Amon finish their dungeon intro course. The instructor tells them that over the past 5 days, they've learned how to explore a dungeon. So this afternoon, they'll be heading into a real one. Amon immediately starts panicking. Rio tells him to chill. Oh, the instructor hasn't even finished talking and you're already sweating. Before wrapping up, the instructor asks if anyone has questions about dungeons. Rio raises his hand. Do dungeons have checkpoints? Like, can you skip floors once you've reached them? The instructor says there are rumors of southern dungeons with that feature, but not this one. Amon's impressed. No wonder you started at such a high rank. They head to a massive Roman-style Colosseum in the center of the city. Turns out the whole city was built around the dungeon, and the Colosseum acts as a barrier to keep monsters from escaping. It would have been easier to build next to the dungeon, but hey, Rio's not an architect. The instructor explains that sometimes the number of monsters inside spikes hard. That's called the Great Surge. Monsters flood the surface, but he tells them not to worry. It only happens when the anime needs a plot twist. They descend into the dungeon. Amon's visibly terrified. Rio reminds him that the instructor said the first floor is monster-free. That's the only level they're allowed to explore. That was a lie. They immediately run into a monster. Well, kind of. It's a giant ant. Rio pins it with ice stakes so Amon can land the finishing blow. Then Rio harvests its magic stone as a souvenir. Later they celebrate with their roommates. No booze, just flavored water. The crew congratulates them for defeating an ant. Amon insists it was all Rio. He just finished the job. Amon's so hyped he wants to go back tomorrow, but he's worried he's too weak to go alone. If only someone strong and cool would join me. Rio rolls his eyes. Stop with the hints, I'll go. I was planning to reach floor 3 anyway. He's also curious why an ant showed up on the first floor. Their roommates mention rumors. Ants have been appearing in early levels lately, but no one knows why. Then Abel shows up and explains it's because ants dig tunnels that reach the upper floors. Rio tells him not to butt into private conversations, but the roommates are starstruck. Meeting the leader of Crimson Sword is a big deal. Abel introduces himself and warns them that while Rio is strong, he's also kind of a pain, so please take care of him. Neil stands up like he's saluting a general. You're my hero. When I grow up, I want to be just like you. Can I shake your hand? Abel smiles and gives him a handshake. Just remember, priority number 1 for any adventurer is survival. Rio asks why Abel's at the guild so late. Abel says they just got back from a mission. The rest of Crimson Sword arrives and immediately scolds Abel for wandering off. They remind him he needs to report to the guild master. Abel says nothing's more important than his fans. Warren disagrees. He picks Abel up like Shrek carrying Fiona and hauls him off. Before leaving, Lynn throws Rio the most obvious, dramatic stare imaginable. Ria apologizes for the chaos. The rookies are buzzing. Rio's clearly well connected. Ria scolds Lynn for being so obvious. Lynn says she couldn't help it. Rio's got her curious after everything Abel said. Ria admits she's curious too, but she didn't need to count his eyelashes. Abel calls out, "Soon you'll see his true power," trying to sound cool. But it's hard to be intimidating when you're being carried like a sack of potatoes. The next day, Amon and Rio head into the dungeon. They descend a bit until they run into a pack of wolves. Rio impales the first one. Another leaps at Amon, but he slices its snout with his sword. A third takes the chance to attack from the side, but luckily Rio knocks it away, leaving it vulnerable for Amon to finish off. After that, they take a short break. Rio cleans the magic stones they got from the wolves and tells Amon that his fighting style reminds him of Abel's. Amon says his teacher was a former adventurer from his village named Kero and that he learned swordsmanship in the capital. It's a famous style called Hume or something like that. Rio says he also had a sort of teacher, though he doesn't really have a style. He just swings his sword around. Then it's time to move on, and Rio asks Amon not to push himself too hard since his fighting style looks really tiring. He recommends building stamina by running as much as he can every day. He also tells him that even though Abel is considered a master, he still trains every morning, and if Amon wants to be as good as him, he'll have to train the same way. The next day Rio heads out again, but this time not to a dungeon to wipe out native wildlife. This time he goes to the city library, which is huge. The librarian helps him find beginner alchemy books, and it looks like this might be Rio's new hobby. After skimming through them, he goes to sit by the fountain and thinks that if he wants to take it seriously, he'll have to invest in his own books. Then the city begins to darken until it's completely pitch black. Rio looks up at the sky, and he really shouldn't have. It's an eclipse, and you're never supposed to look directly at one. Luckily, he didn't fry his eyeballs. Rio starts feeling a tingling sensation in his tail and realizes something's wrong. All the background characters have vanished and he senses a dark presence. Then bam! A massive fire attack comes out of nowhere. Luckily, he blocks it with an ice wall. That's when she appears, a waifu with an iguana tail and little goat horns who can shoot fireballs. Rio figures she must be an Akuma, one of the most dangerous monsters in the world, on par with a griffin. So yeah, running away sounds like the best option, if she lets him. The Akuma charges up another attack, and this one looks even more intense than the last. Rio reinforces his ice wall to absorb the hit, and yeah, he manages to withstand it. But while he's busy with that, the woman fires a wind spear that pierces through the ice and hits him right in the kokoro. But what does wind do to steel? Nothing. For a second it looks like his pecs are just that strong, but no. It turns out the Fairy King's outfit isn't just for show. The woman realizes that if she wants to finish him off, she'll need more than magic. Good thing she's packing a sword too. Rio draws his own, and the sword fight begins. Rio creates several ice spears and hurls them at her, but she's fast. She's using wind magic to boost her speed and counterattack. They're pretty evenly matched. She notices his sword is also from the Fairy King, so she wonders what kind of connection he has with him. Maybe he's his godson or something. She starts charging a fireball, but Rio snuffs it out instantly. She doesn't understand how he can cast spells so fast. It's clear he's dangerous, so she decides she has to end it now. They launch into round 2 of sword strikes, and when Rio sees an opening, he throws some ice at her, but she blocks it with fire and earth. Still, Rio keeps up the pressure and manages to land several cuts. He tries to go for the finishing blow, but she's not letting that happen. She sends him flying with a sword strike. Looks like it's the end for Rio, but the charcoal left him a little surprise. Above her, drops of water start to fall. Boiling water. She's forced to shield herself with stone, and Rio gets ready for the final round, but the lizard girl is furious. Let's just say girls don't laugh when you splash boiling water on their face. She's dying to beat the crap out of Rio, but lucky for him, she'll have to save it for later. The eclipse is almost over, and she has to leave. She admits he knows how to fight and says she really enjoyed the battle. Rio replies, "Cool, now get the hell out." The woman says that this isolation was special, which is why she had little control over it. Then she introduces herself as Leonor Urraca Albuquerque. No joke, that's really her name. It sounds like a soap opera villain. Leonor seems worried that Rio knows about the Akuma and thinks she should have taken him out right then. But she also knows he's not the type to go down easily, so she tells him they'll settle it next time they meet. Rio says he'd rather not run into her again, but Leonor says tough luck, it's not up for debate. He should have thought about that before becoming the anime's protagonist. Now he'll have to face her and others like her. Then she vanishes. Rio needs time to process everything that just happened. One thing he doesn't need to think about anymore is whether he wants those books. He's definitely buying them. The guild leader deposited some money for the Wyvern Stones, which to Ryo's surprise turned out to be super valuable. So yeah, he's not gonna struggle with money in this world. He heads to his room so his buddy can heal his shoulder, but no one's there. Oh well, he goes back to the bookstore. On the way, he sees his roommates getting bullied. They're surrounded by a gang of 5 jerks. The guys say the fight wasn't fair because they got ganged up on and attacked while off guard. The bullies say it's their fault for letting their guard down and not expecting a sneak attack. Rio agrees and leads by example, knocking out the bully leader's 4 henchmen. Dan, the main bully, tries to punch Rio, but the protagonist takes him down with a light jab to the stomach. Then he heals his friends with a potion, takes a bath with the crew, and his fairy-looking buddy uses priest powers to heal his shoulder. Amon and his party are deep in the dungeon, throwing hands with a squad of goblin archers. They manage to wipe them out, but one arrow tags Amon in the arm. Luckily, Eto heals him with magic, though let's hope that healing spell comes with a tetanus booster. The weird part? Goblin archers aren't supposed to spawn on the 5th floor. That alone freaks them out enough to consider turning back. That and they're pretty satisfied with how far they've made it. Eamon says if only Rio were with them, they could push way deeper. But the others remind him that party members have to be the same level. Bringing Rio would be like asking kindergarteners to tank a raid boss. They leave the dungeon, totally unaware that in the next room over, a massive monster was busy turning another party into chunky salsa. So close. And they had no clue. Meanwhile, Rio's off training near the edge of town, still chewing on his fight with Leonor. The battle was pretty even, but it exposed some major weaknesses, especially his movement speed. Leonor used wind magic to zip around like a human Beyblade. Rio's got none of that, so he starts brainstorming how to use his water magic to go full Sonic. He tries using pressurized water jets to launch himself. It works underwater, but on land? Not so much. He even makes an ice path like Frozone and blasts water from his back like a DIY jetpack, but he only moves a couple meters. Honestly, he'd go faster just ice skating. He calls the experiment a flop and heads to the library to research Akumas and alchemy. Meanwhile, Lynn's already there, digging into Ryo's powers. She can't find anything that explains how he casts so many high-level spells so fast. Then Sarah shows up. Lynn asks if she's back from her mission in Lune, and Sarah's like, yeah, I'm literally standing here. Then she says her Uber's waiting and dips. Peak useless conversation. Amon and the side characters arrive at the guild and show Nina the goblin archer crystals. They tell her they found them on the 5th floor, which also raises red flags for her. She heads off to report to Hugh. The guild leader agrees. It's sketchy that monsters meant for floor 10 are chilling on floor 5. He asks how many B-rank parties are currently in town. Nina says 2, Crimson Sword and White Brigade. Wait, White Brigade? Hugh tells her to summon both for a new mission. Turns out Abel doesn't trust the White Brigade much. He's not thrilled to work with them, but whatever, he shows up anyway. When they get to Hugh's office, Phelps, the leader of the Supremacists, White Brigade, is already there. Hugh explains the Goblin Archer situation and says they're 100% sure about it. So here's the deal. He wants both parties to head into the dungeon and look for signs of a grand search. You know that classic anime event where monsters suddenly flood out of the dungeon like it's Black Friday at a cursed Walmart? It's been 10 years since the last one, and this could be the start of another. Goblin Archers showing up early is a pretty solid warning sign. Hugh offers 100 gold coins up front and another 200 after they complete the mission. Just to be clear, Abel asks if all they need to do is confirm it. Hugh says yep, if they see signs, it's happening. They need to get topside ASAP and prep for the incoming monster beatdown. Hugh's already catching the scent. He knows exactly what trope is about to drop next. He's in full anime dad who's seen some stuff mode. He orders the dungeon sealed off so no one else can go in and tells both teams to enter first thing tomorrow. Both parties accept the mission. The next morning, Rio heads out early. This time, he's taking a stroll through the north wing of the library, where the big brain books live. Apparently, some parts of the library are level locked. Luckily, the north wing only requires a D-rank pass. There's also a forbidden section, but that's B-rank territory. So yeah, he's locked out of the spicy lore for now. Meanwhile, his teammates are also prepping to dive into the dungeon again, though no one's told them it's been shut down. Classic miscommunication arc. Rio arrives at the north wing and digs the vibe. It's massive, mysterious, and probably smells like old paper and existential dread. He starts looking for someone to help him find the books he needs, because soloing this search would be a nightmare. That's when he runs into Sina, aka the gorgeous waifu he met when he first arrived in town. Crimson Sword arrives at the dungeon entrance, and as usual, Phelps and the White Brigade are already there with Hugh looking smug. Turns out the White Brigade is way bigger than Crimson Sword. They've got tons of members, but for this mission, they only brought the C rank and above squad. Once everyone's assembled, Hugh gets ready to open the dungeon gate, but Abel stops him. His vinyl antennae are picking up danger vibes. He asks Lynn to cast a detection spell. She uses wind magic to scan the first floor. And yep, it's absolutely crawling with monsters. That confirms it. The Grand Surge is officially happening. Everyone retreats to the city walls, slams the gates shut, and calls for reinforcements. Amon and his crew arrive at the walls and notice they're closed for the day. They figure it's because of the goblin situation. Just then, a guy runs up and tells them the surge is happening and they need all available fighters on the walls. So they join the incoming monster smackdown. But hold up, we're gonna pause the apocalypse to check in on Rio and his waifu moment. Sarah shows up, recognizes him from before, and says she had a feeling they'd meet again. Rio tells her he's looking for a book about sexy demon girls. Wait, no, about alchemy. Totally alchemy. Sarah says that's a pretty niche topic. Rio explains he wants to build a golem just for the memes. She doubts there's a Golems for Dummies manual lying around, but she might know a few books that could help. She offers to guide him. She knows the library like the back of her elf hand. Rio says he loves reading, but it's been ages since he touched a book, referring to the ones he read in his past life. Sarah picks up on that and says he talks like it's been decades. Rio quickly changes the subject to avoid oversharing and asks if she's an elf. Sarah confirms she is, and also an adventurer. She's part of a B-rank group called Wind, though group is a stretch since she's the only member. Rio remembers Abel mentioning there was only one elf in the city. Sarah confirms it. Elves living among humans are rare, so yeah, she's one of a kind. The city walls are sealed and everyone braces for impact. Then boom, the dungeon gates explode open and a tidal wave of goblins comes pouring out like it's a clearance sale at Monster Mart. The adventurers start sniping from a distance. Arrows, magic blasts, the whole long-range buffet. Healers are patching up the wounded like it's an MMO raid night. Everything's going smoothly, except the goblins just keep coming. The battle turns into a stamina test. Who's gonna run out of gas first? Eventually the archers run out of arrows, but just in time, Neil shows up like the MVP, holding a mountain of arrows he scavenged from every shop in town. He also delivers a message from Hugh to Abel. A big boss might be on the way. If that happens, Crimson Sword needs to be the ones to take it down. So conserve your energy, save your ultimate moves for the final boss. By late afternoon, they've cleared out all the low-level goblins, the ones who were basically just cannon fodder. Hugh orders Crimson Sword to descend into the dungeon and finish off the tougher ones. Phelps and his mystery teammates sneak in too, because of course they do. It looks like they just yeeted themselves into the earth, but nah, it was all calculated. Lynn used a wind spell to soften the landing. Wind magic is turning out to be the Swiss army knife of this arc. They dive into battle and quickly mop up the remaining goblins. But you already know the anime rule. The real boss always shows up last. From the depths of the dungeon, a goblin general emerges. Wait, scratch that. 3 goblin generals. Triple threat incoming. And if there are 3 generals, you know what that means. A goblin king is coming. He's just finishing his evil bubble bath. So they've got a small window to take out the generals before he joins the party and things get spicy. Abel and Phelps each take 1 general, while Ria and Phelps' teammate tag team the 3rd. Abel goes full swordsman mode, Phelps is jabbing away with his spear, and the other mage is throwing spells like she's speed running a magic deck. At one point, Abel dodges a sword swing and slices off the goblin's hands, straight up Count Dooku style, 1 general down. But then he senses something dark crawling out of the dungeon. He shouts for everyone to duck, and good thing he did. A massive wind slash erupts from the dungeon and cleaves the goblin generals in half. A rap to those guys. Maybe if they ducked too, they wouldn't be goblin sushi. It was a wind attack, but juiced up to anime final boss levels. Then the Goblin King steps out, and to prove he's the baddest dude in the dungeon, he nukes his own generals just to flex. Pure villain energy. Abel and Phelps rush him while the others watch in awe. Abel unleashes his signature move, Perfect Shadow. It creates a phantom version of himself that attacks, tricking the king into countering the fake, leaving him wide open. Abel drives his sword into the king's chest, but it's not enough. Luckily, Abel planned for this. He calls out to Lynn to fire her special move. She launches a barrage of air bullets that absolutely wreck the Goblin King. With that, he falls, and the party stands victorious. But just when they think it's over, something even worse stirs in the dungeon. Rio walks into the guild and finds everyone totally wasted, partying like it's the end of the world. He's clueless. Turns out a few hours earlier, they all fought the battle of their lives to save the town. But Rio, nah, he was busy getting his romance arc on. Meanwhile, you can't even enjoy the victory properly. After the monster wave comes the paperwork tsunami. Forms, reports, signatures. He's drowning in bureaucracy. But hey, he wanted to be guild master. Sucks to suck, and to make things worse, some researchers are coming to inspect the dungeon, so it's gonna be shut down for the whole month. No loot, no quest, just vibes. They explained to Rio that what hit them was the Great Wave. And Abel? Dude went full shonen protagonist. Led everyone like a boss and finished off the baddies with a mega wind spell. He was the only one who dodged the final boss's attack. Then Abel shows up and says he pulled it off thanks to a technique called Perfect Shadow. It lets you dodge anything. Just then, Lin and Ria show up looking for Abel. They knew he'd be with Rio because apparently now Rio's his main squeeze. Abel denies it, saying he just said the fight would have been easier with Rio there. Just kiss already. Lin asks Rio if it's true he can make an ice wall in midair. Abel's like, heck yeah, but clarifies it's only 40 meters wide. Good thing, any bigger and he'd be OP as hell. Lin asks if it's an original spell or something he chants. Rio says it's a spell he pulled out of nowhere and that every mage should have their own style. Basically, freestyle magic is the way to go. They bounce before the food runs out. Abel explains to Lin that he uses chantless magic, and Lin's like, that's kinda sus. Next day, the adventurers go job hunting, but the economy's in the gutter. Dungeons closed, so no monster crystals, and no gathering quests because the warehouse is full. It's ramen and tap water for dinner, folks. Luckily, Ryo's still loaded from that bird bounty. He's just out shopping for materials to keep playing alchemist. His friends are shook because those materials cost a fortune. Rio gets an idea. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. He offers to pay his friends a fat stack if they go gather the materials for him. That way he saves on costs and they get work. Only catch? It's an off-the-books mission, so no guild credit. But with the cash he's offering, who cares? Rio heads back to his room and hears a commotion outside. Never one to miss drama, he peeks out the window and sees some soldiers harassing a girl while her boyfriend tries to defend her. The soldiers try to drag her away, but the boyfriend steps up and shoves the guy holding her. The soldier's not having it, draws his sword, ready to go full villain mode. But then he slips. He asks the boyfriend what he did and the guy swears he didn't do anything. The soldier gets up and slips again. Then Phelps shows up and scolds them for being absolute clowns. The lead soldier asks who he is and threatens him with the classic "you'll regret this" line. Phelps shuts him down and drops the mic. He's Phelps A. Heinlein, son of Alexis Heinlein and heir to the Heinlein name. Translation: not just an adventurer but a noble. A noble who's not about to let his taxes pay for a bunch of abusive meatheads. He tells them to get lost. The couple thanks Phelps and heads off. Then he notices he's got one more spectator. He introduces himself to Rio and says Abel hasn't shut up about him. Rio wants to ask how he made the soldier's legs go night-night, but Phelps lies and says the guy just tripped on his own. Just then, his partner shows up and drags him away. Later that night, Rio heads down for dinner and Abel joins him. Rio warns him, "I'm not paying for your food." Abel replies, "I don't need a rookie to treat me." And Ryo's like, "Good, cause I want you to pay for mine." Abel's not falling for it. He knows Ryo's swimming in cash. Ryo finds it weird seeing Abel alone and asks if he went off to, Abel shuts him down, saying he can't be slandered like that in public. Someone might actually believe it. Rio figures Abel's just trying to protect his rep because maybe he's into someone and doesn't want to sound like a creep. He asks if it's Lin. Abel says nope, she's into Warren. Which is weird cause Warren's like 10 feet tall and Lin's barely 2 apples high. How would that even work? Rio asks if it's Ria then, and Abel panics. Ding ding ding, we have a winner! Abel says he was actually looking for Rio because he needs help. One of the dungeon inspectors has some shady bodyguards and they need to track them down before they stir up trouble. Rio spots some unfamiliar adventurers and follows them into an alley. 4 of them jump out to attack, but Rio drops some ice boulders on their heads. So much for the dramatic ambush. Abel finds a box and says it's full of alchemy supplies. Ryo's like, let me see, I need that for my setup. But Abel says, nope, it's evidence. They check their IDs and turns out they're C-rank adventurers from Jaclair. They tie them up and leave them there. Meanwhile, Phelps is out on his nightly walk to digest dinner, but the same soldiers from earlier are tailing him, ready for revenge. Before they can strike, they get paralyzed by darts. Sheena, Phelps' partner, had been shadowing them. Once they're frozen in place, she hits them with flames so hot even their boots are toast. Next day, the dungeon inspectors arrive and they're already stirring up drama. The lead guy, Harold, talks to Hugh and demands access to guild resources for the investigation, including the adventurers. Hugh's not having it. These guys weren't part of the fight and shouldn't be risking their necks. Harold pulls out the classic official decree move. It says the king gave them full authority to do whatever they want. Hugh says it's unreasonable. Harold gets it and says they won't leave the guild empty-handed. They'll also request supplies from nearby towns, but they still need adventurers. Hugh agrees to open the dungeon but warns them. If anything goes wrong, the guild, the adventurers, and the city aren't taking the blame. Harold's cool with that and even offers double pay to any adventurers who join the mission. Deal sealed. Ryo goes to find Abel, but at the entrance he runs into a girl who looks super stressed. She says she needs to get to the Adventurers Guild ASAP. Ryo tells her he was just about to grab a taco, but she incites it's an emergency. She has to deliver a letter. They head in to see Abel, and the girl hands him a letter from someone named Master Hilarion. He's asking for help guiding the mages through the dungeon. Abel's not thrilled. Turns out years ago, an A-rank party entered the dungeon right after a monster wave and never came back. And it wasn't some noob squad, their leader was S-rank. So yeah, not exactly a casual stroll. Best not to enter right after a wave. Abel says it's better to stay out and excuses himself. Or like he said, he's got a taco waiting. The girl thanks him and stays behind with the Crimson Blades. They ask her name and she says she's Natalie Schwarzkopf. Lynn hears that and goes, "Wait, isn't your dad that actor who played the robot from the future?" Natalie's like, "Nope, that's Schwarzenegger. My family's famous for water magic." Lynn takes the chance to ask if she can make ice walls in midair. Natalie says she doesn't know that trick and asks where she heard about it. They tell her the guy who just left can do it. Abel jumps in and says under no circumstances should anyone fight Ryo. Odds are they'd lose, and if he ever snaps and they have to fight him, the best strategy is to surrender and beg for mercy. Then he tells Natalie that if she ever needs help and can't find them, she should go to Ryo. So first he says Ryo's a walking danger zone, and then he says he's trustworthy. Poor girl's gonna be so confused. Anyway, dungeon exploration day arrives and Abel decides to join. Guess the double pay was convincing. Harold shows him a device that tracks mana trails and sends the data to an analysis team on the surface. Abel admits alchemy's pretty cool and mentions he's got a buddy who's into it. Harold's impressed and goes, "No way, you have friends?" The mission starts and it's supposed to be easy. They just need to reach the 3rd level. Meanwhile, Ryo's friends return with the materials and he pays them generously. Probably saw they were starving. Ryo also tells them the dungeon's open again, but you need to be at least D rank to enter. So they're out. Oh, and there's gonna be a meeting to explain everything, so they'll have to attend. After 3 days of exploring, the team reaches level 7, but they haven't found anything yet. No reports, no monsters. They see the Brainiacs doing research, and Ryo explains they're investigating a theory that monsters come from level 38. Ryo goes to the meeting, where they say weaklings can't enter the dungeon, but they still need help guarding supply caravans from other cities. Ryo randomly asks about the magic stones left behind by the wave monsters. Hugh says it was weird. Every single one was a clear stone. Back in the dungeon, the researchers reach a door as dark as a wolf's mouth. They order it to be explored, but first they check for mana traces. And yep, there's something there. Hey, if you made it this far into the video, don't forget to type the word exquisite in the comments. Thanks a million and see you in the next video.